My name is Aaron Ladd, host of the Chief Squad Show here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And Kansas City, so close to making one of my wishes come true. We'll tell you what it was coming up later in the show.
I am Darren Smith, and I will tell you that New York City's new mayor, Mom Donnie, has nothing to do with the Kansas City Chiefs, and I don't even have to explain why.
And my name is JC Pearson, and I'm glad Aaron Ladd's wish didn't come true, and I'm going to tell you why.
Chiefs Kingdom, stand up. It's the Chief Squad. Everything Kansas City Chiefs every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from Arrowhead Stadium, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Squad up. The Chief Squad Show starts now.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Remember, right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It is the midweek of a bye week for the Chief Squad Show. Aaron Ladd, Darren Smith, and JC Pearson doing some self-scout as we look at the offense, the defense, the special teams, the coaching, everything that Kansas City has going on as they enter the back half of the regular season. It was a quiet trade deadline against some of the hopes and dreams of some panelists here on our platform. We will get into that, as well as you, the everydayers who tap in on every episode. We will take your questions at the end of the show. I like to throw those up, so get those comments in, get those questions, those concerns, so we can make y'all part of the program. Let's just start with the trade deadline. Darren Smith was very active in our group chat about this one. Here's the information. The Chiefs reportedly offered a 4th-round pick to the Jets for running back Breece Hall, but the Jets held firm on wanting a 3rd-round pick. Breece, almost a Chief, but we'll stay with the Jets. It came public that he wanted out there. We've talked a lot about this. You can go ahead and stamp this part on your bingo card. Early in the first 5 minutes of this episode, we're talking about the Chiefs running game and them needing to make some changes. It wasn't Breece Hall. The price was too expensive. What do you make of this whole deal? We'll start with you, Darren. JC, I know where you're going with this one.
Well, for viewers who have, watched us over the last 3-4 weeks, I've been adamant that I didn't think the Chiefs were going to make any big trades or any trades at all, especially for a running back. For me personally, I didn't see the need because based off of how the offense was playing, and even after the game in Buffalo, I still didn't think that they would go out and search for or get a running back. Now, again, I don't know how credible those reports are, but that was something that we found out late in the day on yesterday that supposedly, the Chiefs offered a 4th-round draft pick. Now, to be quite honest, based off of what the Chiefs have done in recent seasons, I don't think a 3rd round would have been too much for Breece Hall. But what I kept trying to explain to people was that to get Breece Hall, you were also going to have to offer him a contract extension. He was not just going to play out and then just go out along the merry way. And a lot of fans just didn't seem to understand that. They didn't have one. I already knew that they didn't have the cap space, and for that. Now, granted, you could fudge around with it with an extension and put all that money on the back end or whatever, but they just wasn't going to do that because they felt that they were already have pieces in place on the offense. Now, I was a little surprised that they did not do anything on the defensive end based off of what we've seen throughout the season with the defensive line. But running back, I just didn't really feel like they were really going to do anything. I mean, you're paying Elijah Mitchell $3.5 million, and he's just sitting on the practice squad or sitting on the inactive list week in and week out, and he's fully healthy according to his wife. And so, why would you go out and get another running back when you haven't utilized all the running backs that you have?
True enough, according to his wife, right? Yeah, she didn't see.
Yeah, how did you get that information, Darren? Yo, who told you that?
Yeah, I mean, she posted
it's
on
out
Twitter.
there.
It's out there.
Yeah.
You got to read, Aaron.
She wasn't too happy that Clyde got activated and her husband still on the practice squad. But they've got a lot of guys, a lot of money. I just didn't think.
And JC, to your point about Clyde being active, he only had 2 carries for 5 yards. So it was like, I mean, Elijah could have done that too.
Yeah, and I read too that there were some teams interested in signing Clyde off the practice squad. But he talked to Andy about it, and he talked him into staying, and he wanted to prove himself if he was going to stay, because obviously it's his decision if a team wants to sign him off the practice squad or not. That he said if he was going to stay here, that he wanted a chance to prove himself. So maybe that was the reason why he got called up. But again, why give up a third round? I'm surprised they even offered a fourth round, to be honest with you, for Breece Hall, a good player. But I mean, you're not going to, utilize his talents to the fullest, because you're not going to give him that many touches.
And that's what I kept trying to explain to Chiefs fans. Like, he's not going to get 25 touches. He's just not.
Right. And, they like the young guy, Rashard Smith, who is kind of similar, in terms of catching out of the backfield and that kind of stuff. They've, and if they want to run it, they've got 4 other guys that, they split up the runs, with Elijah. It's not active yet, but he's healthy. Clyde now, Pacheco is not going to be out for a long time. And then, what's his name? 29 is my name right now. But so I mean, they're it just wasn't worth the assets that they were going to have to give up for him.
There's a couple different pieces to this. I think the first piece is they obviously were interested in making a move. If you offer or reportedly offer a 4th round pick for somebody, that shows that you recognize there is a team need there, which is something that we've been begging for on this platform. I think the second piece of it is targeting Breece Hall of all the running backs that were supposedly out there. We know Alvin Kamara was a name that was supposedly out there. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a guy you elevated. Why was Breece Hall the one above other ones? Did you think maybe he was the one that was most likely to be lured away, the best price tag, whatever? Then there's the extension part of the thing, right? If you targeted Breece Hall of all players, you then recognized, hey, we're then going to have to do the legwork, as Darren said, to be able to keep this guy in the fold. I don't think you're offering a fourth round pick for a rental. I've got some numbers behind Chiefs running game, and obviously we're going to do some more self-scout in our third segment. But as far as the Chiefs running game is concerned right now, 4.5 rush yards per running game per attack. That's 12th in the league, tied for 12th, 121 rushing yards per game. There's a commitment to it. They're wanting to. Obviously, they like what they're getting with Kareem, but I'm kind of fighting back on what you said a little bit, JC, about Isaiah Pacheco. I can't count on him anymore. I mean, the one thing I can essentially count on with Pacheco is that he's going to miss time. He misses time every year. And I think that's something that maybe the front office sees in a move like this, or a potential move like this, or a failed move like this, is we need to bring in somebody who can stabilize this unit. Even if it's underperforming overall, we can't get to that Elijah Mitchell part of the depth chart. We got to finish out with some guys that we can depend on. And it looked like Breece Hall was the one that they wanted.
Well, like I said, I'm surprised that, that it came out that they offered a 4th round for him, because if it was that big of a need, well, then give up the third. Yeah, right. So I don't know. There's pros and cons either way, but I don't think that if they thought that it was a huge need, and again, like I said, if they really did offer a 4th, why not give up the 3rd then? It's not that much different.
Maybe you draw the line in the sand and say, hey, that's too rich for my blood. You know what I mean? The 4th, that's the best deal I can give. Of a need,
if it's that big of a need, like you're saying, and they're already counting Pacheco out, and Elijah Smith is not the guy, even though he's making $3 million or whatever it is, there would be a lot of money invested in that running back room if they would have brought Breece Hall in, but you're not getting, what are you getting in return when you're not really a running football team? So, I don't know.
And that when you look at it, you can always draft a running back next year, even though you just drafted a running back this year. And you can get great value from a running back. Now, of course, somebody put out a Chiefs mock draft that, they will look at Jeremiah Love in the 1st round, in this upcoming year's draft. Perhaps, but again, the last time you spent a 1st round on a running back was, of course, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But again, and Clyde is not Clyde is not one of those type of running backs that you can count on for an every down back. So, I'm not sure now. Jeremiah is that we've seen in college thus far, but again, the Chiefs do not. I keep trying to explain to fans as kindly as I can. Andy Reid and them do not run a football like that. Again, now Kareem Hunt's rookie year in that first game against the New England Patriots, yes, I think he had 245 yards from scrimmage in that game. That shocked everybody. You know what I'm saying? But that's also what they feel like they had to do to win that game. But week in and week out, they are not going to run the football like that. Plus, they just don't have. And it's nothing against Andy Reid and Matt Nagy, but that's just not their mentality. Their mentality is throwing the ball down the field. Again, if people get upset because I go back to Eric Bieniemy as a running back, and as the OC during that time period, that was his mind. He knew the balance between trying to run that football and utilizing the clock and trying to keep the other team's offense on the sidelines if that's what it needed, if that's what you need to do. So again, it's nothing against Andy and Matt, but that's just not their personality. If they, and even Eric Bieniemy told me a while back, because I would ask from time to time, why don't you just run the football more? He told me to a man that they view the short passing game as an extension of their run game, and that's just the way it is. And so, if you got a running back that can catch the ball at the backfield, yeah, cool. That's just an added bonus, added benefit. But the numbers that they're looking at Patrick Mahomes and his offensive numbers, not the offensive numbers of the running back or the running game.
I wouldn't be surprised since that didn't go through. And, if in fact they did offer that and acknowledge that they need somebody else, maybe Pacheco's going to be out for an extended time. I wouldn't be surprised.
Pacheco's last year with the Chiefs anyway.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'm talking this year.
No, I'm saying this is last season with the Chiefs. So they're not going to re-sign him in the offseason.
No, I'm talking about the rest of this season.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. If he's not out for the year.
No,
as far as I know, but if they do need somebody to come in, I wouldn't be surprised if they brought in an Alvin Kamara because it doesn't cost them anything, and it'll be cheap. They don't have to give him a lot of money either, and no draft capital lost. And you take a look and see if he can give you something, and if so, great, and if not, no harm, no foul. So somebody like that, I can see them taking a shot at.
No,
hold on. That makes sense.
Hold on. Let me put it. The Chiefs aren't signing Alvin Kamara for cheap in the offseason. Alvin Kamara is going to get at least $10 million or more. That's just that.
Yeah, but it's cheaper than having to give up draft capital to acquire them and then being hamstrung to signing them individually versus the market dictating what their value is and then going off that. I get that part,
but the Chiefs can also just draft a running back and still pay cheaper for drafting a running back than what you would. Paying a veteran who got to come in and still learn the offense. Yeah, so I'm saying
but
you can draft a running back in the first and second round.
Not many rookie running backs come in and make a huge impact right away. So
it's an unknown commodity. It's the same thing that you got with Pacheco.
Yeah, but that's also the easiest transition from college to the NFL. I mean, we saw Pacheco was a 7th round draft pick and started his first game as the Chiefs.
Sure. We also saw them try it with Carson Steele, though, and look at what happened with that. There's two sides to every coin.
Hold on. I didn't tell him to draft Carson Steele.
There's two sides to every coin.
Yeah, absolutely.
One more thing while we're on the trade deadline. Are we surprised they didn't make an offensive line move or anything along the trenches in general?
If anything, defensive side, not
defensive line,
not the offensive side. Obviously, Simmons is back. Josh Simmons is back. And again, they got a lot of money up there, a lot of money being paid up there. But if anything, I thought that if there was any trade to be made, I thought it would be on the defensive front, and they didn't do that. So, outside of that, I really don't think that there was anything. Or anyone that they needed to go and spend that kind of capital on that was going to come in and make a huge impact.
I would also say that I was actually shocked that they didn't, or maybe, I don't know, maybe they didn't get any calls about maybe trading one of the wide receivers, Hollywood or even Taekwon, because again, as I mentioned, with the return of Rice, his numbers have just dropped just drastically since Rice's return. So to me, that was a shock right there.
I think that's a good call. I saw his name floated around, but maybe the price was too high, as we talked about earlier in this segment. Good start on the first segment here on the Chiefs Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network. When we come back, it's the bye week. We're going to do some self-scouting on the defensive side of the ball, where Kansas City can improve and where they've done well in the first half. We'll tell you all about it on the other side of this break. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we are back in on the Chiefs Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network. Aaron Ladd, JC Pearson, and Darren Smith joining you in a bye week. We're laboring through the bye week. Like the Chiefs, they're chilling, they're resting, they're getting ready for the stretch half of the regular season. Here we are doing some self-scouting, looking back at the first half, what's gone well, what has suffered, and what needs some improvement. I want to start with the defensive side of the ball because it's been a strong suit. It's been a strong point for Kansas City. So far through their 5-4 record. I'm scrolling, trying to find some defensive statistics for Kansas City, and we have them. Opponent point per game right at about 18. That's good for 3 in the league. Yards per game, 291. That's 7. So they're like top 10 in a lot of the big stats. Fourth down conversion, they're stopping those more than not. This can need some improvement. Third down conversion, 19 in the National Football League. Let's get some highlights. We'll start with the good news, right? Let's get some highlights defensively for Kansas City. Darren, there's not many highlights, man. Well, why you make that face?
I mean, look, it's just me, man. But when your top defensive player, your top paid player, who's a captain and one of the leaders on the team, only has 13 tackles after 9 games and maybe 2 sacks. Everybody else has stepped up, but I'm not seeing enough from the quote unquote one of the.
We were supposed to talk about positives first, my guy. Positives.
Hold on, but that's why I gave you the look, because you was like, well, why is that look? My look. Okay, so positive, Nick Bolton. Nick Bolton leads the team in tackles, which is what he should do. But look, I got more concerns than I do praise. And as people know me for my honesty and my bluntness. I can't, I can't sugarcoat things. And so if there's any positive, I'd say that the rookies have done well, in the playing time that they've gotten for the Kansas City Chiefs, and the fact that, we were always trying to figure out, what Spags was going to do with his defensive backfield, especially in the absence of a Justin Reed and some of the other players on that side of the ball from last year. I think that they've done extremely well. Shamari Connor, Trent McDuffie, they've done well along with Jalen Watson. So, so I'll give them their flowers.
Did you say you had more concerns than positives on the defense?
Yeah, I didn't stutter, did I?
Come on, dog. What do you expect them to do? Shut everybody out? I mean, Aaron gave you a bunch of positives.
I mean, hold on. Again, JC, I start with the leader of the defense. Now, if you're gonna tell me that the leader of the defense, Chris Jones, has been playing well this season, then maybe I'm covering the wrong team, because I'm not seeing what you're seeing. 13 tackles after 9 games so far. Come on, man.
Well, we said just defense as a whole, not the individual. Yeah.
Well,
so
I got okay.
The defense
well,
as a whole has there are a lot of positives. The defense.
Well,
as a
I'll
whole.
put it like this: when Shamari Connor and Trent McDuffie have more tackles than everybody on the team except for Nick Bolton, that's a problem as well, because they should not have as many tackles. They shouldn't have more tackles than the linebacking crew.
Well, I mean, I'll be the bright side. I mean, we
Thank
still
you.
have
Thank you.
I mean, hold on.
Come on, man. I mean, the bottom
I
line
gave you
is
some positives, man.
the bottom line is prior to last game, right? You singing the defense's praise. The defense has played very well. You've been on this, obviously you and Chris got something going on.
I got
But
nothing going on with Chris.
no,
Hey,
I'm just
pause.
saying.
Hey, pause, man.
I'm just saying,
man.
though, defensively, we've been saying this defense has been doing a great job, and playing winning defense up until last week. Last week, of course, they had some issues, but there are a lot of positives defensively. Now, what they're going to do is self-scout and see, are they being predictable? Are they, Aaron gave you that third down stat. Are we calling too many of the same coverages on third down, too many of the same blitzes? Teams are starting to pick it up. Teams are knowing what we're doing. That's part of the self-scout. But, there are a lot of positives that this defense can it get better, of course. But the bottom line, too, is how many points given up. And I believe Aaron said that they were third in the league in terms of points allowed. I think that's a huge positive in winning performance. You ask them, I'm sure that they're going to say that they can get better as well. But, I'm not going to say that there's more concerns than positives.
Now, you all were the same two people that talked about how the Chiefs were beating up on the JV team and the Raiders, but you want me to give them the same, but you want me to give them the same credit for shutting them out. So you can't have it both ways, because just 2 weeks ago they were playing a JV team in the Raiders, but you want to profess, oh well, they shut them out, and we
9 games this year. I mean,
come on, man. Okay, all right.
Let me hop in. I do have a positive as far as the Chiefs defense is concerned. One of the biggest positives in the first half, in my opinion, has been the play of defensive end George Karlaftis. I remember when he got drafted in Vegas, I was there, and he was seen as a project. Maybe that was something that people said. They had slow expectations, didn't expect him to be a double-digit sack guy, which he was in his second season in the league, got 10.5 in 2023. Already has 5 this year, and I think that number could be higher with some plays that finish off a little bit differently in the first half. But to me, he's always been a consummate professional in the locker room. He is someone that has been a sponge as far as absorbing some of the leadership that a Chris Jones, a Charles Omenihu, a Mike Dana have given. And now he reflects those things. Now he's a mirror of that. Now when you have a Norman Lott and some of the younger guys coming in that you think and want to make an impact along the defensive line, they're learning from a guy like George Karlaftis. He's someone that's always shown up on the tape in this first half and has continued to be a highlight for this defense. I think he has one of the closest relationships with Steve Spagnuolo as well. George Karlaftis has been a huge highlight in this first half for Kansas City. And if they're going to make another push to the postseason in the playoff, he's going to have to be that double-digit sack guy that y'all have been asking for.
No, I agree.
Yeah, and he's expected to be.
Go ahead.
Darren, go ahead.
Well, okay, I'm sorry. Well, no. So what I was going to say was, if you go back to the training camp, I remember when Chris Jones challenged George Karlaftis. He talked about, you signed up. He's talking about how you signed a big contract. Let me see you get more than 10 sacks or get high up in the sacks. And so now his sack total is low. I mean, it's made. He's got 5 at the moment. So I think he leads the team in total sacks right now. So I do like that he has been playing well. And he has been someone that, even though I still think he's a little light on the backside when it comes to a defensive end or whatever, that he plays, I think we've gotten a lot out of him this season.
Yeah, and like I was saying earlier, he has to be that guy. When you sign that contract, a lot is given, a lot is expected, and so he's got to continue to be that guy. He plays hard. He's a young guy. But when they're both playing hard and giving the effort and creating havoc, then that team and that pass rush and that front is a lot better. And haven't been getting that, not from Georgia's standpoint, but if they can get everybody up there playing hard, his numbers will go up as well, because now they're going to have to be concerned with other guys. Right now, if I'm another team scouting this team, I'm going to make sure George doesn't get to the quarterback, make the other guys beat single blocking, and they haven't been doing that enough.
As far as lowlights, you led right into it, JC. It's the guys that are not named George Karlaftis for me. There has not been nearly enough impact from the others. I know Mike Dana had his one standout game with the sack and the pick in prime time. But other than that, we have not been saying their names enough. I know Darren Smith has been saying one name quite a bit. But I think that's impacting some of the red zone percentages that we're seeing. Kansas City is allowing opponents to score 64% of the time when they get in the red zone. That's not good enough. We've been asking for this defense to generate more turnovers. Red zone turnovers almost were double, because you're getting the ball, you're stopping them from scoring, and you're giving your offense the opportunity to go and cash in on the other end. As far as lowlights are concerned, sure, we can pick on some guys in the secondary that have had some penalty problems. I'm thinking of a Jalen Watson. I'm thinking of some of those corners. But for me, I've had higher expectations for the others when it comes to non-Karlaftis defensive linemen, and they just have not. They have the most room for improvement, I'll say, in the second half.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot they can improve on for me. And also, going back to not even just Christians, but the defensive line as a whole, they just have not been getting enough pressure that we've seen throughout a lot of these games. And obviously, if you look at the most recent game, there was really no pressure at all put on Josh Allen. And again, I don't know if they just, I don't know if Josh Allen somehow is a kryptonite to, saying to this Chiefs defense and team. But, but hopefully one of the things that JC talked about, when you're on this bye week, get a time to make some reflection, they'll get a chance to, if nothing else, try to work on that.
Yeah, no question. They'll be looking at everything. And, I mean, the biggest thing up there is effort, and I would say just consistent effort. Because when it's there, we know that they are capable. But for some reason, we haven't seen it every play, every game like we have in the past. And, again, we'll see if there's some adjustments made there. But, with this team, it's just about effort when we're talking about up front in the trenches defensively.
And that's a concern that I have, because, what you like, even from the Buffalo game, my biggest gripe that I had with Chris Jones coming out of the game was that you could see live on television where it was a lot of times he wasn't giving effort. I mean, he was getting pushed back 5-7 yards, from the offensive line, and then when he is on the offensive line or defensive line trying to make a play, it's like he's holding, or the guy's holding him up, and Chris Jones is not trying to move or throw him off so he can make the play, which again, to me, just from an observer from watching the game Sunday, was very concerning, because people see that on film, and that becomes a part of what that becomes a part of who you are, part of your character, because now people are going to be questioning, are you really giving it your all out there?
You think that sets a bad example for the rest of the defense?
Definitely, because I'm pretty sure Spags is going to have to show that on the film. But, you got the younger guys. I mean, you got younger guys that's going to be looking up to you, and they see that type of effort out there, and that's not good.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we talked about with a guy like Pennell coming back. It's not more so what he does on the field, but, he's a peer that can call Chris out. I mean, who on that team, who on that defense, not the team, but who on that defense sees that play and can call him out?
Drew Tranquil, yeah. Nick Bolden. I'm saying, What I'm saying,
they got into it week one, right?
Yeah, but
you haven't seen it anymore. But
it's just an older defense in general, too. Like, I mean, how much are we going to get into the fact that, like, they re-signed most of these guys, and now they're on their second and third deals, and the same explosion isn't there, or the same hunger isn't there when you won so many titles. I mean, it's just a veteran unit.
Hold on. I'll give you the hunger part, but outside of Chris, all these other guys are pretty okay. Drew maybe, but Drew maybe not. But I mean, Jordan, some of these other cats, I mean, they're finishing off their first rookie contract. So, I mean, you make it seem like they long in the tooth, like they Justin, from Tom and those type of players, man. They're not that old, brother.
Yeah, but up front, Udana and Pennell, older guys, the rookie got hurt. He's out. Yeah, I mean, Menahu has been around for a little bit. The other guy,
they knew that when they re-signed him too.
Yeah, but I mean, so that's why I was thinking if they were going to do anything, it would be up front defensively. But you're talking about Tranquil calling Chris out. That showed you that week one that Chris is not listening to anything he has to say, and so if he's not going to say anything else, or it's going to be a fight. I mean, it's a respect thing too, and then Tranquil is not, I mean, it's not like he's having the best year either. You know what I mean, and doing as well as he has in the past. So it all goes back to they have to not only self-scout as a defense, but they have to look internally, individually, and and say, hey, do we want this anymore, or have we gotten, like you said, Aaron, less hungry? I got paid, I got my money, got my Super Bowl rings. Sometimes it's natural to not work as hard as you did when you got there. Once you get there, now you are reaping the benefits and the laurels. It's sometimes it takes a shock to make you realize that, hey man, I'm not doing the things I did prior to getting this contract or prior to the things all these accolades I've gotten. It happens.
Let's go to break real quick. Good conversation. We're going to pick it back up on the other side and continue to talk offense as we self-scout during the Chiefs bye week here on the Chiefs Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it. That's where BILT comes in. BILT is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards you can actually use. When you pay rent through BILT, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But BILT isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. Whether I'm grabbing food at my favorite local restaurant or heading to the gym, I'm still earning rewards. BILT has made everyday life feel more rewarding, from your neighborhood to your travel plans. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use that link so they know the Chiefs Squad Show sent you. All right, we are doing some self-scouting here on the midweek episode of the Chiefs Squad Show. Aaron Ladd, JC Pearson, and Darren Smith doing some defense talk, leading into offense now. Maybe talking some hunger as well. Maybe we're doing some self-scout of the Chiefs mentality as they sit 5-4 on the outside of the AFC picture looking in. Obviously, the offense has been a little bit more of a bright spot than the defense for Kansas City in the first half. A few numbers before we do our highlights and lowlights from the first half for Kansas City's offense. Averaging 26 points per game. That's good for 9th in the league. 370 yards per game, 6th in the league. About 5.8 yards per play in general. That's 10th. They're also 10th in third down conversion and 4th overall in red zone scoring percentage as far as touchdowns are concerned. I think highlights are very easy. Rashee Rice, since he has come back, has been a highlight for this offense. Patrick Mahomes and his play have been a highlight for this offense. But it's few and far between outside of that. Let's stick to the highlights before we start dumping on everybody, Darren. Do you have anybody that you want to give some flowers offensively on this KC offense?
Hey, first of all, don't try to call me out, bro. They gonna call me out.
Self-scouting,
Yeah, but to your point, unfortunately, because of the drop off, I thought Tyquan Thornton in this play, for before Rashee Rice came back, or whatever, he was a great addition. I think the Chiefs. I can't remember if the Chiefs picked him up last year prior to the Super Bowl. prior to the Super Bowl if they got him in the offseason, but just the sheer fact his play, I thought thus far this season, especially against the Giants and some of the other games where he had the long, those little deep catches that he would get to put the team in position to win. I thought his play has been well. I'd also say Kareem Hunt. I mean, we wasn't sure what we would get with Kareem Hunt, because we thought Pacheco would be the workhorse, but I think Kareem has done well in his spell at running back. And then also, giving credit where credit's due, I think Rashee Rice, just the sheer fact coming back, he has showed no signs of rust, because essentially outside the cover of the few preseason games, he hadn't played in over a year. When you include the suspension and the injury, so to be able to just come right back as if he never, basically after what we saw the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. I mean, I thought he's played extremely well. So those, and of course, Patrick Mahomes up until this last game, I thought he's played obviously MVP level as well. And Travis Kelce. I'm sorry, Travis Kelce.
Just name everybody then, bro. I mean,
I could. I mean,
on and on, man.
I mean, you all want me to be positive, so I'm
but I think although he's missed the last couple games, I think Justin Simmons was a bright spot because they didn't know how he was going to be coming off of that injury last year, and I think he was
Josh Simmons,
not Justin Simmons. I'm sorry, Josh Simmons, that left tackle. Speak up, man! Don't just make all them crazy faces, Grinch.
I was just trying. I was like, Justin Simmons is.
Josh Simmons. I mean, coming off that injury, no one really knew how he was gonna recover from that. He was late round pick after that, and he's played well. And I think moving Suamatia down into the guard position was a positive for him and this team as well. So, I think, there are a lot of positives offensively. It was just that it took a while for them to all play together with Rashee being out and not coming in for a while. But then once he came in, they started finding a rhythm. And then obviously Josh goes out and misses a couple games. So we haven't really seen this offense as a complete unit for a couple of games in a row. But so I think there's definitely some positives there.
And you brought up a good point with Kingsley. Based off of what we saw last year, he and Wanye at the left tackle position, and of course they had to bring a guy in from Arizona, and how that didn't play off, and then Tooney playing the left tackle role in the Super Bowl to move him and to probably his more natural position of guard was a real smart move by the Chiefs.
The Kareem Hunt call was a great one because, kind of word to our first topic, he's played so well or exceeded the expectations that were given to him so well that you almost avoid making a move for Breece Hall. You hold firm on your price. Now you're assuming that Pacheco is going to be week to week, whatever it is. I always assume that he's going to miss some time. Kareem Hunt's play has steadied you and has allowed you to make the decisions knowing, all right, our running game is at least at this floor right here. He's established the 4.4 yards per carry. Where the running game is right now is on the shoulders of what he's given you in the first half. He might be the biggest highlight as far as offense. You know what Patrick Mahomes is going to give you? Travis Kelce's been kind of up and down. There's been some receivers that maybe have been in and out in the lineup. Kareem Hunt has been that consistent, steady presence for a guy that you essentially got off the street a year ago.
Well, and look, and actually to point this out, talking to Kareem throughout the season, one of the things that, you kind of forget, because again, he was on the couch, when Isaiah Pacheco got hurt and they brought him in, and he had to sit a week on the practice squad, and in the following week, you just threw him out there. This is really his first full off season training camp, OTAs practices, with the Chiefs since he was here in 2018. So the fact that he got all that underneath him, and even according to him, he's healthy, he's in shape. He didn't have to just kind of, get on the team and then play himself in shape. He's in shape from beginning to end right now. And, granted, running back his age, you get a few nicks and knacks, whatever. So they do give him a day off, like every 2 weeks or so, from practice or whatever, to just make sure, he's ready to go for the game. So that's a good point about, that we mentioned about Kareem. But that's essentially one of the reasons why, because he's fresh and he's in shape, and he's had all off season to work with the team, training camp and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, I've always been a Kareem Hunt fan, and I was disappointed when they let him go the first time, because he was just getting into his prime, and he would have really been rolling. But one thing,
if they do not cut Kareem Hunt, we beat New England in that AFC Championship game.
Yeah, and one thing about him, I think you just got to feature him, just give him the ball. And he's a guy that is going to continue to get stronger, more carries he gets. And one thing I remember them saying when they drafted him is the first tackler very rarely brings him down. And when you watch him run still now, keep that in mind and watch that, because the first tackler very rarely brings him down. He always makes that first guy miss or runs through him and gets yards after that. But very, very rarely does that first guy bring him down right away.
I'm going to go a little out of the frame with my low light for offense self-scout in the first half. And it's been the mend of the coaching staff and the players. It's been the play calling in some aspects. It's been the execution in some aspects. Just this general fog of where our expectations meet the execution, where Kansas City has been, where we know they can be, the highness, what they've shown us, the skills and what they've been able to do at their peak versus what I feel like we get on a week in and week out basis. I don't think they're reaching that potential, and I don't want to know who I blame, who I place that at the feet of the blame, whatever it is. But I just feel like it hasn't been what we know that they're capable of. Maybe that's a play calling perspective. Maybe that's a players not putting out there the best foot on tape, but it just hasn't been what we're used to seeing. That's my low light overall offensively.
Well, JC, I'll let you go next.
Well, I mean, obviously short yardage goal line situation's been an issue. And I think when it comes to that, it's more play calling and not sticking with the run in short yardage situations, because, I mean, Kareem, when you give it to him, more often than not, he's going to make positive yards. And if he does get stopped, now we automatically go, empty backfield, and we're throwing the ball the next 3 plays if we go, 4 downs. But, and again, and I mentioned last week after the last game that, I wouldn't mind seeing some quarterback sneaks instead of, lining up in the shotgun and handing the ball off. You hike the ball back 3-4 yards to try to, go 1 or 2 yards. So, I mean, I think that's they could do that. Even if they're going to bring in somebody else, I know they used to bring in like, Bo Bell and those guys, the bulldozer, to do those short yardage quarterback sneaks. If they know you're doing it, so what? They still have to stop it. You need a yard to go, and then you can run some other plays off of that. But I think they just need to stick to it a little more in the short yardage goal line situations.
For me, my biggest pet peeve, I guess, that I've seen on the offense is I don't like the fact that Patrick Mahomes has been the team leading rusher for 3 of those games that they played. Three to four losses came when he was the team leading running back. Like, if you're going to run the football, man, that's what you got running backs for. Mahomes should not be putting himself out there to where he could possibly get a concussion or worse or whatever running the football like that. So that's one of the, I guess, to me, it's one of the low lights. I know you can say it's a highlight because he's adding to the offense, whatever, but I think he's putting himself in harm's way by running as much as he has been to be the team leading rusher, because again, it goes back to, well, what do you got your running backs for? The other thing offensively, I'm sorry, if there's a low light outside of that, is again, it's just that I just don't think that they, outside of the last 2 games prior to this one, of course, and you can say JV playing the Raiders and playing the Commanders without their starting quarterback. is that was one of the first times that we saw them really having a balanced attack with both the passing game as well as the run game. And I felt like they got away from that in this last game. Yeah, again, Kareem Hunt had 49 yards on 11 carries. As someone mentioned, if they keep feeding the ball, just like they did James Cook, he had 27 carries for 114 yards. So if you just double up what Kareem has, that's 22 carries for possibly 100 yards. And of course the Chiefs extend their time on the field, which keeps Buffalo on the sideline. So I guess I say all that to say that some of the play calling and clock management or game management has been a little questionable for me. That I hate to see Andy kind of revert back to when he first got here, when he was having clock management issues, because you're so busy, as JC just alluded to, where you run the ball, you get 1 yard, and now next thing you know, you're passing the next three downs instead of, when you get 7 yards on the run, you're not trying to run another play, on the ground to try to extend extend the chains. Instead you drop back to pass, and it's like you don't have to. So that's
it just feels like they used to be more creative from a play calling aspect too.
Yeah.
I remember the snow globe play and the Ferrari play, and
ring around
even
the
like
roses.
the whole thing we're saying about like the short pass game being a version of the run game. Like they used to be more creative in how they got there. And I don't know what the disconnect is there, but that's what our self scout is locked on here on the Locked On Podcast Network Chief Squad Show during a bye week. We got one last break. When we come back, we'll take some audience questions. We'll keep talking about offense, defense, special teams, and more. Appreciate y'all joining us. All right, one final segment here in the midweek during the bye week for the Chiefs. Aaron Ladd, J.C. Pearson, and Darren Smith doing our own evaluation of the Kansas City offense, defense, and special teams. I didn't think special teams deserved its own segment because really they've steadied the ship. And shout out Harrison Butker. No, you don't want to have your own segment, right? That's not a good thing. It's not a good thing when we got our eyes on you for a full 15 minutes. I think Butker has done well. There was a time in this podcast history when we used to come here every week and talk about how Butker's effing up the game, and we need to bring in some kicking competition, and Darren Smith is at his locker after every game. That's not a place you want to be at. Special teams has steadied the ship. They figured it out. I will say one thing that is concerning with Kansas City, and it's been this way ever since I started covering the team, and I'm sure even longer than that. They're a very penalized team. They pick up a lot of penalties. They got averaging right now right at about 6.5 penalties per game. That's 14th in the league for about 56.5 yards per game. That's 21st in the league. I don't know how you, and maybe JC, you can give a player's perspective on this. How do you coach penalties? How do you play more disciplined? How do you avoid some of that penalty yardage? Because it hurts when it happens at the wrong time.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about it. You make it a point all week. You make it a point during the special teams period. You make it a point in the special teams meetings. You make it a point. We can't hold. We can't jump off sides. We can't block in the back. We can't do all those things that are negative to the return game, to the kicking game, any of that stuff. You put an emphasis on it. You show them in the videos, and we can't do this. You point it out, and the thing is when guys start getting called out, then guys are a lot more conscious of, hey, I can't do this, and I can't, I got to be smarter. I can't grab, I can't hold, I can't, if I don't see it, the numbers in the front, I can't block them, things like that. So you just have to put an emphasis on it. And they're not okay, and that's what it is. Those guys are all grown men and getting paid a lot of money, and sometimes you need to get your feelings hurt to correct some things.
I'll say this about the penalties is that we've seen them go from 13 penalties against Jacksonville to 0 the following week. So that's one of the few times I've seen a team literally get coached out of penalties, because they went back, because there've been games where the Chiefs had double-digit penalties. I'm like, you're either coaching it or you're allowing it. And again, to go from 13-0, that is coaching, but that is also self-awareness from the players. Because remember, up until maybe last week and maybe the week before, we hadn't heard Jawan Taylor's name being mentioned in like four consecutive games. So that, so there was a lot of stuff that had been cleaned up. But sometimes when you play against another team that a certain player might be better than you, you might think that's what you got to do to gain an advantage, and it gets spotlighted because you get caught.
And I will say that
I wonder enough. Go ahead, JC.
Go ahead. That's an emphasis. Obviously, in the meetings, you got to talk about penalties. They need to emphasize takeaways too. You're not getting enough turnovers. Not getting enough turnovers. And, we used to always, those things were always paramount in the meetings. And it wasn't hey, we need to get more turnovers. It was stern, emphasized, and you knew that you needed to get the ball out somehow, and you couldn't afford penalties. And when you did, you dreaded going into those meetings because you knew you were about to get chewed out.
But now let me ask you this now, JC. Now to your point, being on defense, a lot of times for like the defensive back, for those interceptions to come, it normally comes because you're getting a lot of pressure from the defensive line to get to that quarterback to make him uncomfortable. Am I right?
Yeah, no doubt. It goes hand in hand, and the better you cover, it makes the quarterback have to hold on to the ball a half a step longer. And that gives the line a half a step or half a second more to get there. We used to go in the huddle and, we used to say, hey, give us, you got to get there a little bit quicker. And sometimes they would come in the huddle and say, hey, you got to cover a little bit quicker. We're one step away, cover a little bit quicker. So it goes cover a little bit longer. So it kind of goes hand in hand. But yeah, absolutely.
Another thing I got my eye on, and we'll get to some audience questions and comments here in a second. Who's going to be that third pass catcher for Kansas City? We know Rashee Rice has asserted his dominance as pass catcher one, and Travis Kelce seems to be pass catcher two due to his chemistry with Patrick Mahomes. But who's that third guy? It seems like Xavier Worthy is that guy from time to time. Hollywood Brown obviously had a breakout game earlier in the first half. Tyquan Thornton has had standouts. I'm wondering who's going to be that third pass catcher for this offense that Mahomes can rely on down this second half as they try to push again. I wonder what y'all take is on that.
I'd like to think it's Xavier, but it seems like it's really based off of what the other team is doing defensively. Because you can kind of, as I said before, maybe pick your poison. We know Kelsey's going to get his, and from the extent that we've seen thus far, Rashee Rice is going to get his. The question is, I think they try to be creative in getting the ball to Xavier, but I think everybody else, it's just a matter of, if Patrick is going through his progression, going through his reads, who might be open. And because otherwise, it's really kind of hard to say that this other person is going to play. It's supposed to be Actually, it's supposed to be Rice, Worthy, and then Travis Kelce, because Travis Kelce should not be the workhorse, because right now he leads the team in yardage as a receiver. So this was supposed to, he wasn't supposed to be, making all these plays or being that focal part of the offense. But I think it's based off of what we're seeing defensively and what they're doing in guarding our players.
Yeah, ideally, you want Worthy to be that guy because there's no substitute for speed, obviously. So he's a guy that can go down the field. But is he a consistent route runner? Is he hands consistent to move the chains? He's hopefully it's him. Rashee's and Juju kind of run a lot of the same routes. And move the chains, and then Kelce fits in. So Hollywood's gotta he's got to carry his load, to be honest with you. There's a lot of expectations on those three being the guy. In Hollywood, one game he only gets one target. Then he catches the long ball right before half last week, and which is great. Comes off of a kind of a broken play and scramble play, but he's got to be more consistent in terms of getting open as well, because he's a guy that, can stretch it on the other side. And if he's not going to be that guy, Taekwon can run deep and stretch the field. So, those guys, they all have a role. They just have to step up and be that guy. Juju's always been, he's not that long ball guy that stretch the field, but he's always been consistent catching the ball and trying to move the chains. So, like Darren was saying, depending on how the defense is playing you, they all have a role. But and some of those guys have missed time, obviously Worthy with the shoulder and the ankle, and so they all should be healthy after this week.
And one last thing before we go to the comments and questions. This was the first time, and they actually mentioned it during the game. Steve and I were kind of confused, like, wait a second, this person's going stride for stride with Worthy in the game. Now, I don't know if you all caught that, but I think when they announced it, Jim Nance might have been the one, or Tony Romo said that obviously Xavier ran the fastest combine time last year, and the corner who was defending them ran the fastest combine time this season. Of course, they had to match us, because I was like, Xavier is not separating from this guy. So, so to Buffalo's credit, they found somebody that could go stride for stride with him that, and pretty much took him out the game.
I saw a theory that he maybe came back a little too soon, and some of the plays, I don't know who on ESPN pointed this out. All the plays that he was running early were for him to end on the sideline, so he was avoiding hits. Did y'all see any of that as far as Worthy?
Nah,
I didn't see that.
It wouldn't surprise me.
But he's got to, with the routes that he runs, he has to be able to finish on the sideline, those comebacks. You sell the go route, obviously, with the speed, and then be able to break that off and run that comeback, which finishes on the sideline. So he's got to be able to do that. He's got to be able to get to the post. We've seen him in single coverage. He should be able to win. Because of his speed. Now, are you going to win every time? Absolutely not. But like Darren said, if you have a guy that's running stride for stride with you down the field on a 9 route, well, that's when you give him something else. And now you sell that 9 and you come back on either a stop or a comeback or whatever. But, again, they all have their strengths. It's Pat looking for that and not just bailing out, and then now it's a scramble drill every time. So he's got to have the confidence to stand in there and allow those guys time to get down the field and get open and separate as well too, and not just run around. And now that there's no set route. Everybody's just looking for an open spot, and I think there's been too much of that.
Let's go to the comments here before we finish out on a midweek Chief Squad show bye week. Darren, just standing on business when it comes to Chris Jones. We know you have an axe to grind, Mr. Smith.
I don't know what axe that is, but okay, whatever.
I can tell you what it is. I'm going to say this. I know it's a bye week. They're not running to Chris. I know that.
It ain't got nothing to do with the parlay slip.
You better not having to see Chris at Gates or wherever. You might have a little issue, bro.
We've missed Justin Reed. The safeties and linebackers are struggling with covering tight ends and running backs the past 2 games. That's true. I don't know what Justin Reed is up to these last few years, but they have definitely been targeted. The tight ends and running backs have been an issue the last few weeks.
Well, the thing with Justin, of course, he's now with the Saints, so they signed him in the offseason. But the thing that you miss with Justin Reed, not only is his leadership, but his physicality. Like, he set the tone every game, you know what I'm saying, with certain hits or whatever that woke the defense up. You don't really have, Brian Cook, to the extent that he can get on somebody, but other than that, yeah, his leadership and his physicality is lost with this defense.
And I think when we play tight ends, and tight ends have been a nemesis for our defense for a long time, not just this year, not just the last couple games, but even when Justin was here, when Honey Badger was here, all those guys, tight ends have been an issue. And one of the reasons why is, we're not physical with them off the line of scrimmage like they are with Travis. You remember they used to put 1, sometimes 2 guys and bump Travis at the line of scrimmage. And, we let their tight ends just run off and then try to cover them. And, we don't have cover linebackers. Like Tranquil, we saw him fall down on the touchdown on the corner, but that was going to be a touchdown whether he fell down or not because he was beat. Yeah, he was beat. So, if you get up and you're physical with those guys at the line of scrimmage, just like with a wide receiver, at least you throw the timing off. And we're not doing that. We don't have those kind of guys.
Final question, Darren, what is your appearance fee? What does it take to deck you out with some gear to wear on the platform here?
Well, first of all, Mr. Gates, and it's not Ali, it's Mr. Gates to you, Tom Lester, and anyone else. It's Mr. Gates. They don't pay me. Actually, I got this ad from KC, the clothing store over at Ward Parkway, from the Popper, the local rap artist. And so he gave me, I love the ad. And of course, it represents Gates and Mr. Gates. So, that's just how it is, man. They ain't got that. They sponsor me, yes, but they ain't got to pay me. But the food is great. So.
Darren Smith can be bought, as we know. We will do another
podcast
Hey,
first of all, Ted DiBiase said it best. Every man has a price, okay? Everybody's got a price. $1 million.
No Chiefs game this Sunday, but we will have another episode of the Squad Show this Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. Yeah, Darren, we talked about that in the chat.
I thought it was the next week. I didn't know we had 3 shows this week. I thought it was next week.
No. 2 shows this week, Wednesday and Friday.
Okay, well, we had a show Sunday too, but okay.
Let's see if I can.
We don't have a show Sunday. We don't have a show.
No,
Sunday.
I'm saying we had one this past Sunday, then tonight, and then that's what threw me out.
See if I can. Let me see if I can get Chris to tune in.
Hey, hold on. Hey, get him on the show. Get him on the show.
I don't think you want that.
Hey,
we'll work on that and see if we get it. We'll see you on Friday, y'all. Until next time.
Peace.